In this session, I want to go ahead and build the goal-seeking balancing loop. I'll go ahead and create a new model, tell it I want to save, and I'll call it goal-seeking and just test balancing loop, just so it's got a description. So the first thing I want to do is to go ahead and create the stock, and I will call this current value, and then I have to go ahead and create a flow, and I want to create a flow into it. So after I create the flow, I go ahead and reverse it. The current value is initially 0, and the flow, I'll just make the flow 1. As I said, as I build things, I want to test them, and I'm going to run this for a period of 10 minutes. Maybe I'm filling a bathtub. I don't know. We'll see. So by putting the settings up and simulating, okay, it runs from 0 to 10 because it's incrementing or adding 1 each time period, which is as expected. So now I will go ahead and add a goal, and we'll make the goal 50, because I am filling a bathtub. I guess maybe it's a big bathtub. I want 50 gallons of water in it. So what I now need is to cause the flow to be the difference between these two. So I'll go ahead and select link and connect this to flow, and when I connect this to flow, it ends up giving me a problem. So I go ahead and do this just so I can get a hold of it. Then I'll go ahead and select the link, hold down the shift key and click on it. So I now have a waypoint, so I can go ahead and resize it. And I can put multiple waypoints on it, which makes it easier to reshape the curve. Let me move this over here. So now I want the flow to be the difference between them. So I make, rather than 1, I now make this equal to the goal minus the current value. So this should run, and it does. The difficulty is that it takes, because the flow is controlled by the difference between the two of these. Initially, the difference between them is 50, so the flow is 50, and in the first time period, it reaches the goal, which, unless you have a really big faucet on your bathtub, is a bit unrealistic. So what I'll go ahead and put in is a variable, which I'll call max flow, and connect this. And max flow, I'll say, is 5. In other words, the maximum I can get out of the faucet is 5 gallons per minute. So what I'll then go and do is set flow to say that this is really, I need a function here. Where is it? I need the general functions. Maybe it's here. I need the if then else function. If then else, test condition, value of true, value of false. So if the current value is less than the goal, then I want it to be the max flow. In other words, if I'm still trying to reach the goal, I make the value of the flow equal to the maximum that it can flow. Otherwise, I make it equal to the difference between the goal and the current value. And we apply this. So now we go ahead and run it, and okay, so now it increments. The max flow was 5, so each time period, it increments by 5, and finally, at the end of 10 time periods, it reaches the goal. Now, we could go ahead and change this a bit and go ahead and put in a slider and say that the slider goes from 1 to 10 in increments of 1. So now I can vary the value of the slider so that if the maximum flow was only 3 and I run the simulation, the bathtub won't fill in 10 minutes. It takes longer than that. So let me go to settings and make this 20 and apply it, and now run the simulation. So now at time 17, but it actually ends up being 51, which means we've actually put more water in the tub than we really wanted, and that's because that odd thing of adding 3 each time. At one point it's 48, and then you add 3 and it's 51. So we need to change the formula a little bit so that rather than just blindly adding the difference between the goal and the current value, we need to add, well, I'll leave that as an exercise for you. You need to change this formula so it looks at it to ensure that if the difference between the current value and the goal is less than the max flow, you actually put the next time period, you put in less than the difference, less than max flow. And you can change this formula to get it to do that. Let me get this out of here because that wasn't supposed to be there anyway. So hopefully you see from this that creating the balancing structure is, again, very straightforward, very simple. As I repeatedly say here and to everyone I talk to about doing simulation, build a little, test a little, build a little, test a little, repeat, so that you, every step of the way, you test what you have put together to make sure that it works the way that you expect it to, as opposed to putting in a half a dozen items with formulas and values, and when you run it, it produces a result that doesn't make any sense, and then you spend far too much time trying to figure out where it is that it's messed up. If you test every addition that you make, then the problem is most likely in the last thing you added as opposed to somewhere else. So hope you found this informative, and I'll see you in the next session. Bye.